Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, Chris Daughtry. I appreciate you guys joining us for today's show. The Crimson Tide is set to take the field in 26 days from now, so I want you guys to get in the comments section and spam those 26s. Coming up on today's show, Kalen DeBoer did his post-practice press conference yesterday. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. And he talked a little bit about the defensive line and how they've kind of shined so far going through this fall camp. He talked about Jalen Milroe and his progression in this new system. He also talked about the biggest concern for Alabama coming up here going into the 2024 season. He also spoke about Richard Young at that running back 3 spot and if he can possibly, contribute for Alabama, giving some meaningful snaps for them here in the 2024 season. But first things first, I want to talk about the defensive line. Kalen DeBoer spoke very glowingly about the defensive line at yesterday's press conference, saying basically they've been the best position group so far during fall camp. This is exactly what Coach Kalen DeBoer said about the defensive line. He said, the thing that jumps out to me, I thought the defensive line did a nice job today, very active early on with the schemes. They were putting in a couple of runs where there were some nice creases. Offensive line, give them some credit, but quickly adjusted to the last 3 quarters. 80% of practice, I thought, just did a good job against the run and continued to do a good job putting pressure on the quarterback consistently. They're just around making the quarterback, having to move around and, to have him make some plays. So I think that position group's been the most consistent, and I like where they're at. Now, this defensive line, like I said, like he said, I think they are some of the deepest position groups for Alabama this year. Tim Smith, he's been in the program forever. Tim Keenan, really think he's going to take a step forward and jump and put up some positive production for Alabama this season. Really hope Jaheim Otis can really take that another step forward. Hopefully he can be healthy and stay healthy to stay on the field this year. And then let's see what we can get from Jamarian Latham. He's been in the program for a long time as well, just hasn't been able to get on the field. He's going to be at that bandit spot this year, which is basically like your defensive end, kind of. So Jamarian Latham, LT Overton, Keon Keeley, all 3 guys at that bandit position could put up some valuable playing time for Alabama this season. Your main 3 defensive tackles, Alabama's really only going to play 2 defensive tackles at a time this year, but Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, Jaheim Otis, those are going to be your 3 guys. And I really hope that Tim Smith, these are all the career stats. Tim Smith has the most career games out of all these guys. And, they're not terrible, but you look at what Justin Obogbe did last year, and they're about the same snaps in a 1-year sample size. So I really hope Tim Smith can really be able to contribute this year for Alabama. Same with Tim Keenan and Jaheim Otis. I know Jaheim Otis dropped a lot of weight, especially since he's been on campus at Alabama. So hopefully they can find a way to really, get him to be able to get some production on the field, because at the end of the day, the sacks aren't really what you look at on the defensive line. Really, it's that pressure rate, TFLs, because you want those guys to really be, run stoppers for you at the end of the day. And last year, Alabama, I used the 100-yard mark for rushing as kind of a pinpoint. There's no science behind it, but they kind of, they gave up 100 yards on the ground a lot last year, 9 different times. And you look at the specific games, that South Florida game, 177 yards on the ground. They really chewed up the clock and kept the ball away from Alabama. LSU went crazy on the ground last year. Chattanooga, you don't want to be giving up 126 yards on the ground to Chattanooga. And then Auburn last year obviously torched you on the ground with Jarquez Hunter, 244 yards. You cannot be doing that in the SEC and stay consistent in winning. So I want to hear from you guys in the comment section right now. What is your confidence level in this defensive line room? Scale it for me 1 to 10 in the comment section. It is the pinned comment on today's video. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Go down there, take advantage of it. Let me know your confidence level in the defensive line. Kalen DeBoer also talked about Jalen Milroe and just kind of how he has progressed and gained more confidence in this new system. And I really love hearing this from the head coach because there's still a lot of negativity out there about Jalen Milroe. This is what the head coach said about Jalen Milroe and his progression. I thought yesterday and today he took the best steps I've seen since I've been here. Today he came out again and really threw the deep ball probably as well as I'd seen him throw. That's a lot of just guys and the timing and all of that and the rhythm coming into play. He's feeling more comfortable there. So big plays that were made out there. The defense made a couple of big ones too, but he's really done a nice job of raising his game, asking more out of himself. I'm pushing him. Coach Sheridan is pushing him too every day, just like those details and beyond, and he's holding himself to a high standard. It's not just all talk. And I think that's the biggest thing right there. It's not just all talk. You know, Jalen Milroe, we have talked about him putting in that time and the effort over the summertime, and we know he can throw the deep ball, right? It's really going to be about those intermediate balls for Jalen Milroe and him reading the defense, getting the ball out of his hand quickly, because I really want to know how he's handling the pressure. Kalen DeBoer talked about the fact that the defensive line has really been able to put some pressure on the quarterback. So what exactly is happening? Is he, scrambling? Is he throwing it into, double coverage? What exactly is happening with Jalen Milroe going through those progressions up against pressure? And like I said, there's still a lot of doubt out there, with Jalen Milroe as the starting quarterback for Alabama. I see it in the comments section all the time. There are people out there that still want Ty Simpson to be the starting quarterback for Alabama this year. And I really just do not get it, because last year, Jalen Milroe, as a first-year starter, took you to the college football playoffs and was one bad snap away from beating Michigan, the eventual national champions. I think Jalen Milroe is definitely the guy for Alabama going forward as their starting quarterback and to lead this team. I also think a lot of the pre-snap motion in this offense is going to help him a lot too. It's going to cause the defense to have a little bit more confusion, because last year you saw, the defense was lining up and they were doing a bunch of different things. It was really kind of confusing Jalen Milroe pre-snap. I think if you take the initiative and you have guys moving on the offensive side of the ball pre-snap, that's going to more confuse the defense. And, at the end of the day, it's going to allow those guys in motion to outflank defenders too, and it just sets you up positively going forward in this offense. Today's show is presented by Game Time. I love the summertime because Major League Baseball is back in full swing, and I love making the drive over to Atlanta to catch a Braves game every single chance I get. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest prices guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You know what? Alabama football is just about a month away now, so you can go ahead and get your tickets for that Western Kentucky game. They're not so bad. These ones right here are a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, you can see it right there on the screen where you are sitting, so you're not obstructed by anything in your way or anything like that. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Check out GameTime.co for last-minute tickets. Now remember, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Now, yesterday, during the media viewing period at practice, Zabien Brown, the freshman cornerback, was seen with a cast on his left hand, and it did seem like a hard cast, but it could have just been really thickly wrapped. I'm not real sure, but Kalen DeBoer did address it at his, media availability and said it wasn't really going to be that big of a concern for him, but he did say, somebody asked him just straight up, what is the biggest concern for Alabama going into the season this year? And he did say it was going to be that defensive back room. And we've been talking about it for a while, right? It's either the defensive back room or it's going to be that offensive line. Those are the two big question marks for Alabama going into the season. He ended up choosing the defensive back room. And it's really mainly just about experience, right? Alabama's got really 2-3 guys with a lot of experience. I wouldn't even say Damani Jackson's got a ton of experience. He only played one season. Malachi Moore up there, 2,000 snaps. Everybody else, you see Deshaun Jones, Damani Jackson, Keon Sabb, Cam Howard, King Mack. All those guys are transfers. Nobody else. Those are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of your top 6 guys are all transfers coming into this season. So, I mean, you've got some really talented guys at that cornerback spot, but at the end of the day, do you really trust throwing a freshman out there at that cornerback spot in particular? So I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your opinion in the comment section. Are you comfortable starting a freshman at that cornerback spot? It's kind of been a while. Kool-Aid McKinstry started a couple games for Alabama at that corner spot. He did pretty well. But he got a lot of flack too at the end of the day. So let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes or N for no. This is what Kalen DeBoer said specifically about the biggest concern. He said, it's going to be the same thing you had going in. It's nothing new. I feel like we're actually doing a pretty good job with the areas that we would maybe feel like we're not behind in, but just young and vulnerable. Our defensive backs, you guys bring up the question too. Those guys are just rising up. We're developing some good young depth, and they're going out there and competing and making plays like we talked about with Zabien and Bach, that being Jalen and Bachway. There's a whole group of guys out there. We just feel like they're sophomores. I wouldn't say they're juniors or seniors yet, but they're mature beyond the amount of reps that they've had the chance to play through 4 practices. And really, it's been more than 4 practices. Most of these guys were here during the spring as well. And at the end of the day, man, you've got 3 of the top 4 cornerbacks coming out of that 2024 class. I don't think you could ask for much more. And I will say, I feel a little bit better about having these specific guys. When you're talking about those freshmen, at that cornerback spot, I think it's a really hard position to play, especially without a lot of experience. And Jalen Ibakwe, too, last year, he kind of played everywhere in high school, played quarterback a lot, too. So, at the end of the day, it's kind of concerning to me that you're kind of going towards freshmen at that cornerback spot, but you got some really good guys to do it. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. Like I said, we're 26 days away from kickoff. That means we're 26 days away from our first watch party of the season. Make sure you guys are subscribed. That's youtube.com/@RollTideTV. The next thing I want to bring up on today's show, Richard Young getting some, buzz as that running back 3, and kind of makes me think, could his role expand more here in 2024? Kalen DeBoer was asked specifically about Richard Young. This is what he had to say. He said he's consistent. The word came up a couple of times already here in our interview, but I think that's a good word for him. He's consistent. He takes that step from spring, learning the offense. He's out there getting lined up, doing his job, doing it at a high level, and doing it over and over again. He's got an explosion to him. He was really more physical as the spring went on, and I think he's really picked up from where he left off at the end of spring ball. I think back to the last 3, 4, 5 practices, including the spring game, and he kind of rose to the occasion. He continued to just be steady. That's what I love about him. That's what I love about the whole position group. Now, like we said, this running back group is going to be really, really good for Alabama this year. And you go ahead and type those L's in the comment section for me, because for months now, I've pretty much been, I'm not writing him off, but saying he was going to get more backup garbage time type stuff. And, I mean, what we've heard, what we've seen from those practice highlights, it doesn't really seem like that's going to be a lot of the case. Makes me think, could he contribute to this team this year? Kind of like Josh Jacobs did back in 2018 when they were running that, three-headed beast of Damian Harris, Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs kind of came out of nowhere for Alabama in that season. Over 120 carries. He was really your number 2 back when it comes to carries. 640 yards, he had less, but he had way more touchdowns, too, than Najee Harris. So it makes me wonder if Alabama is going to go more with 3 running backs this year instead of just 2 with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. I think, maybe Richard Young could get in there and get some positive, valuable reps in meaningful time. And that's the big key right there, meaningful time. So let me know one more time in the comment section, guys. Will Alabama use 3 running backs in meaningful time in 2024? Type A for yes or type B for no. Last thing we want to talk about on today's show really quickly. The coaches poll came out today. They've got Georgia sitting right there at number 1 with 46 first place votes. Ohio State sitting at 2. Oregon at 3, Texas at 4, and Alabama sitting there at that 5 spot. I'm not really going to complain about that a lot. I think that's a pretty solid spot for Alabama at number 5. Then you got Ole Miss at 6, Notre Dame at 7, Michigan at 8, number 9 is Penn State, and then Florida State is sitting there at 10.